In Genesis 32, we read the story of Jacob, the grandson of Abraham, one of the greatest heroes of the Christian faith. But Jacob wasn't quite like his grandfather. He had some issues. He was a kind of a deceptive guy, and he wasn't very well liked. And so he thought his brother was trying to kill him as a result, and so he was on the run, and he was camped out. And he was camped out by himself when in walks this man in the middle of the night and begins to wrestle with him. And they wrestle all night. And just before day breaks, the man touches his hip and wrenches it out of his socket and says, "Let me go, for dawn is approaching." But Jacob says to him, "I'm not going to let you go until you bless me." I think by this point Jacob realizes there's something more to this guy than just a man. How else would he have been able to simply touch his hip and have his leg wrenched out of its socket? And so the man says, "You will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel. For you have struggled with God and with man and have overcome." The name Israel means to struggle with God. Think about it for a moment. He wrestled with God. God is the almighty, the all-powerful creator of the universe, who apparently came to earth as a person and wrestled with somebody, but didn't really win. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense. As we read throughout Scripture, we see other things that we don't quite understand. We're told time and time again that we need to choose God. Joshua says it as explicitly as, "Choose you this day who you will serve, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." But then Paul teaches us that God is sovereign, that he is the one who chooses us, that we don't choose him at all. And so we have these pictures of our free will and our choice, and of God and his sovereignty and his choosing of us. And they seem to be in opposition, and we don't really understand how these two things can go together, and theologians and philosophers have wrestled with these issues for centuries and haven't really come to any good conclusions. How can God be sovereign, and how can we have a choice at the same time? But the fact is this: God is mysterious. There are things about him we don't understand, like what it means for an all-powerful God to wrestle with a man. Like what it means for God to be sovereign and us to have free will. Like what it means for God to come to earth as a person and die on a cross. And there's a mystery to it all that we just don't get. We don't get it because God is infinite. God is unlimited. God has no bounds. But we're not like that. We are finite. We are limited by time and by space, by our physicality, by our mental capacity. And so when we try to understand God, we're trying to understand an unlimited and an infinite being with a limited and a finite understanding. And it's simply impossible. The fact is that as much as we learn about God and know about God and seek to know him better, there are things about him that we'll simply never understand. God is a mystery.